The great hall of Nexus Prime stretched high into the purple sky, its crystal walls catching the light of 3 suns. Inside, beings from across the galaxy sat in circles of floating chairs. Some had 4 arms, others had scales that changed color with their mood. A few looked almost like giant insects, their eyes reflecting the holographic displays that filled the air. Around them, Ambassador Vex High stood at the center of it all. His skin was pale blue, and his head was larger than a human's. 2 small horns curved from his forehead, and when he smiled, his teeth looked sharp enough to cut metal. He waved one long finger, and the air above him filled with images of a small blue planet spinning slowly in space. "Look at this," Vex High said, his voice carrying easily through the hall. "The 3rd planet from a yellow star. They call it Earth." He made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like glass breaking. "These creatures think they are ready to join us among the stars." The images changed to show cities on Earth's surface. Tall buildings reached toward the sky, but they looked tiny compared to the crystal towers of Nexus Prime. Cars moved along roads like ants following trails. Ships floated on blue oceans, pushing through water instead of flying through space. "They have been on their world for millions of years," Vex High continued. "And what have they done? They learned to make fire only yesterday. They discovered how to use lightning just a few hundred of their years ago. They still fight wars over lines. They draw on maps that exist only in their minds." A ripple of amusement went through the assembled beings. The Zephyrian trade minister, whose body looked like it was made of golden threads woven together, spoke up. "Show us their greatest achievement in space travel." Vex High's smile grew wider. The hologram changed to show a small metal station orbiting close to Earth. It looked like a few tin cans stuck together with solar panels attached like wings. Tiny ships, no bigger than insects, flew back and forth between the station and the planet below. "This," Vex High said, pointing at the space station, "is what they consider their triumph. A small collection of metal rooms that barely leaves their planet's gravity well. Their ships use controlled explosions to push themselves through space." Controlled explosions, like children playing with firecrackers. The laughter grew louder. The crystalline architect representative, a being that looked like walking diamond, made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "How long did it take them to build this impressive structure?" 20 of their years, Vex High replied. 20 years to put together something our construction drones could build in 20 minutes. More images flashed in the air. Humans in bulky white suits bounced around on their moon like they were celebrating some great victory. Their lunar base was nothing more than a few domes connected by tunnels. Their Mars colony was even smaller, just a handful of buildings covered in red dust. "They send messages into space," said the Hegemony Fleet Commander, a creature whose body was covered in thick armor plates. Radio waves screaming, "Hello, is anyone out there?" As if the galaxy cares about their existence. "What do their messages say?" asked someone from the back of the hall. Vex High touched a control, and a human voice filled the hall, speaking in a language none of them understood. Then the translation appeared in glowing letters. "This is a message from the people of Earth. We come in peace. We seek knowledge and friendship among the stars." The laughter was so loud now that the crystal walls began to ring like bells. Several beings held their sides, or whatever they used for sides. The Zephyrian minister's golden threads actually knotted themselves from amusement. "Peace," wheezed the fleet commander. "They speak of peace while they point weapons at each other on their own world. Friendship. They cannot even be friends with members of their own species." Vex High waited for the laughter to die down. But here is the most amusing part. They think they are alone in the universe. They scan their skies with primitive instruments, looking for any sign that other intelligent life exists. They write stories about the day when aliens might visit their world. They dream of joining some great community of star-traveling peoples. He paused for effect. They have no idea that 47 different species have observation posts in their system. They cannot see our ships. They cannot detect our stations. We have been watching them for 50 of their years, and they have never noticed us once. The Dominion Science Advisor, whose body was mostly a large brain in a transparent case, spoke with a voice that sounded like music. Perhaps we should make contact, study them more closely. Why? Vexai asked. What could we possibly learn from a species that still uses wheels to move across their planet's surface? What wisdom could come from beings who fight wars over which invisible friend in the sky they choose to worship? Their biology is interesting, the science advisor offered weakly. Their biology is standard carbon-based life, Vexai replied. Nothing we have not seen 1,000 times before. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. They live for barely a century. They reproduce slowly. They require constant food and water and air. They are, in every way, ordinary. The images changed again to show humans going about their daily lives. Children playing in parks. Adults working in offices. Families eating together around tables. To the beings in the Great Hall, it all looked impossibly simple and boring. I motion that we classify their world as a protected primitive zone, Vexai announced, not because they deserve protection, but because they are too primitive to bother with. Let them develop for another 1,000 years. Maybe then they will be interesting enough to talk to. Seconded, called the fleet commander. Agreed, said the Zephyrian minister. One by one, every representative in the hall voted yes. The holographic images of Earth faded away, replaced by an official stamp that marked the planet as off-limits to contact. Not because humanity was special, but because they were considered too boring to waste time on. Excellent, Vexai said. Now, let us move on to important matters. The trade. Dispute over the Andorian crystal mines requires our attention. As the meeting moved on to topics they considered worthy of their time, Earth disappeared from their thoughts as quickly as smoke in the wind. The observation posts would remain, staffed by junior scientists who drew the assignment as punishment for poor performance. The automated scanners would continue recording human progress, filing reports that no one would read. In the Great Hall of Nexus Prime, surrounded by the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, not one being considered the possibility that silence might be more dangerous than noise. Not one imagined that a species might use isolation as a tool for growth rather than a sign of weakness. They had made their decision about humanity based on what they could see, but they had never considered what they could not see. They had never wondered what humans might be doing in the shadows, in the quiet spaces between their radio signals, in the long silences when Earth seemed to be doing nothing at all. The galaxies. Greatest powers returned to their own concerns, confident that they had properly catalogued another unremarkable species. Earth's file was marked complete and forgotten, stored away with thousands of other worlds deemed unworthy of attention. None of them noticed that the human ships they had mocked were traveling farther from Earth each year. None of them detected the energy signatures growing stronger in the outer edges of the solar system. None of them realized that human silence was not empty, it was full of preparation. Dr. Kethera pressed her face against the observation window of Station 07, hidden on the dark side of Earth's moon. Her large silver eyes watched the small blue planet turn slowly below. She had been stationed here for 15 Earth years now, and the assignment still felt like punishment. Her body was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished metal. 4 arms moved across the control panels, recording data that she knew no one back home would bother to read. The Zephyrian Science Council had sent her here after she had questioned their methods during the Great Survey. This was where they put scientists who asked too many uncomfortable questions. Day 5412. She spoke into her recording device. The humans continue their expansion into what they call the inner solar system. 3 new mining stations have been constructed in the asteroid belt. Population of their Mars colony has reached 50,000 individuals. She paused and looked at the numbers on her screen. When she had first arrived, Mars had only a few hundred humans living in small domes. Now they had built entire cities under protective shields. The change had happened faster than any computer model had predicted. Note for the record, she continued, human development continues to exceed projected timelines by significant margins. Through her telescopes, she watched a human cargo ship land at the lunar base on the near side of the moon. The ship was 3 times larger than the one she had seen when she first arrived. The humans called it normal progress, but Cathara had studied hundreds of species. Normal progress was not this fast dot. Her communication panel beeped. A message from her supervisor back on Nexus Prime appeared on the screen. Dr. Cathara, your reports continue to be unnecessarily detailed. Please limit future observations to basic statistical data. The human situation remains stable and uninteresting. Cathara looked back at Earth, stable and uninteresting. If only they knew what she had been seeing. She pulled up her private files, the ones she did not send to her supervisors. Charts and graphs filled her screens, showing patterns that made her skin change from silver to a worried blue-green color. Every other species in the galaxy followed predictable development curves. They would discover fire, then agriculture, then metalworking, then electronics, then space travel. Each step took roughly the same amount of time. Give or take a few centuries. But humans were different. They did not just discover things and move on. They took each discovery and used it to make the next discovery happen faster. Fire led to metalworking in just a few thousand years instead of the usual 10,000. Electronics led to computers in decades instead of centuries. And now, space travel was leading to something else entirely. She zoomed her telescope in on the human space station. It was no longer the small collection of modules that Ambassador Vex-High had mocked in the council chambers. It had grown into a massive wheel spinning in space, with ships coming and going every few hours. But that was not what worried her. What worried her were the ships that left the station and never came back. Cathara had been tracking them for 2 years now. Human vessels would dock at the station, load supplies, and then accelerate toward the edge of the solar system. Her instruments could follow them for about a week before they disappeared beyond her sensor range. When she asked the automated, monitoring stations in the outer system for data, they reported nothing unusual. But Cathara knew the humans were going somewhere. She switched her view to the Mars colony and felt her skin turn an even darker shade of blue. The humans had built something new there, something her superiors had not noticed because they only looked at the population reports. Hidden beneath the main city was a massive industrial complex. Automated factories worked around the clock, producing things that did not appear in any human trade manifests. Computer, analyze human industrial output versus reported civilian needs, she commanded. The numbers appeared on her screen, and Cathara felt her heart skip a beat. The humans were producing 10 times more metal, electronics, and advanced materials than their colonies needed. Where was it all going? She pulled up the energy readings from Earth itself. Another pattern that should have alarmed her supervisors if they had bothered to look. Power consumption across the planet had tripled in the past 5 years. Not gradually, as would be expected from population growth and development. It had spiked suddenly, as if the humans had started building something that required enormous amounts of energy. But the most disturbing pattern was in the radio signals. When Cathara had first arrived, Earth's radio waves filled space with chatter. Television shows, radio programs, satellite communications, internet traffic. The humans never stopped talking to each other. But over the past 3 years, certain frequencies had gone quiet. Military frequencies, government channels, scientific, research bands. The humans were still broadcasting their entertainment and civilian communications, but the important conversations had moved to channels that Cathara could not detect. She had tried to report this to her supervisors, but they had dismissed her concerns. The humans are probably just upgrading their communication systems, her department chief had replied. Nothing to worry about. Cathara was not so sure. She had spent her career studying how species developed, and she had never seen anything like what the humans were doing. Most species followed a pattern of slow, steady growth. They would explore their local area, establish colonies, then gradually expand outward over thousands of years. But humans seemed to be doing everything at once. While they built cities on Mars, they also sent ships to the outer planets. While they established mining operations in the asteroid belt, they also launched exploration missions beyond the edge of their solar system. While they improved their home planet, they also prepared for something else entirely. It reminded Cathara of the way her people prepared for winter storms on her home world. When the weather satellites detected a big storm coming, everyone would suddenly start working faster, gathering supplies, reinforcing buildings, storing food and water. The calm period before the storm always looked like frantic activity to outside observers. But what storm were the humans preparing for? Cathara pulled up the galactic news feeds and felt her skin turn pale silver with worry. The HFY War had been building for months now. Old alliances were breaking apart. Species that had been friends for centuries were choosing sides in a conflict that seemed likely to tear the galaxy apart. But the human observation posts had been sending routine reports saying that Earth showed no signs of being aware of the growing conflict. The humans continued their normal activities, their radio broadcasts still filled with entertainment and civilian news. To anyone reading the official reports, it would seem like the humans had no idea that war was coming. Cathara knew better. She had watched the humans long enough to understand something that her supervisors had missed. Humans did not ignore threats. They prepared for them. When they seemed calm and quiet, it usually meant they were working on something important. She tried one more time to contact her supervisors. This is Dr. Cathara at Station 07. I am requesting permission to increase monitoring of human activities. I believe they may be aware of the galactic situation and taking defensive measures. The response came back within hours. Request denied. Focus on your assigned tasks. The humans remain a low priority. Cathara looked out her window at Earth one more time. The blue planet looked peaceful and quiet, just as it always had. But she had learned not to trust human silence. She began preparing her own private report, one that she would send directly to the Galactic Council when she had enough evidence. Someone needed to pay attention to what the humans were really doing. Someone needed to understand that a species that had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters might not be as helpless as they appeared. Someone needed to realize that human silence might be the most dangerous sound in the galaxy. But for now, she could only watch and wait, counting the ships that left Earth and never returned, measuring the energy spikes that grew stronger each day, and wondering what the humans were building in the darkness between the stars. The first shot of the HFY War was fired at dawn on Nexus Prime. A Dominion battlecruiser appeared without, warning above the Crystal City, and opened fire on the Zephyrian embassy. The golden threads of the trade minister's body scattered, like leaves in a hurricane, as the building collapsed around him. Within hours, the galaxy was burning. Admiral Gorthic of the hegemony fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching another world die through the main view screen. The planet below had once been home to 3 billion crystalline architects. Now it was nothing but glowing fragments drifting through space. His planet-killer weapons had worked exactly as designed. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving recall orders from all outer system observation posts." Gorthic nodded without taking his eyes off the destruction. "Good. We need every ship for the assault on the core worlds. How many posts are we pulling back?" 147 posts from 32 systems, sir, including the primitive world monitoring stations. "The what?" Gorthic asked. "The observation posts watching undeveloped species, sir. There are posts around several worlds classified as protected primitive zones." Gorthic made a dismissive gesture with one of his 4 arms. "Fine. Leave automated sensors to watch the primitive worlds. If any of them develop faster than expected, we can deal with them after the war." The communications officer hesitated. "Sir, some of the scientists are requesting permission to maintain their posts. Dr. Kethara from the Sol System Station has filed several urgent reports about unusual activity." "Dr. Kethara?" Gorthic searched his memory. "Is that not the scientist we exiled for asking too many questions?" "Yes, sir." "Then ignore her reports. She is probably just trying to make her assignment seem important. Recall all personnel from the primitive worlds immediately. We have real enemies to fight." Across the galaxy, observation posts that had watched overdeveloping species for decades powered down their main systems. Scientists packed their equipment and boarded transport ships that would carry them to the front lines. The long watch over Earth and dozens of other worlds came to an end. Dr. Kethara received her recall order while she was tracking another group of human ships leaving the solar system. She read the message 3 times, her skin turning pale with worry. "Computer, compose priority message to Galactic Command," she said. "Ready for dictation, Dr. Kethara." "This is Dr. Kethara, Sol System Observer. I am requesting permission to remain at my post. Human activity in this system has increased dramatically over the past 6 months. Energy signatures suggest major construction projects in the outer system. Ship movements indicate possible military preparation. I believe the humans may be aware of galactic situation and taking defensive action." She paused, looking out at Earth one more time. "Computer, add the following. In my professional opinion, classifying humans as primitive may have been a serious error. Request immediate review of their status before recall of observation assets." The response came back within an hour. "Dr. Kethara, you are ordered to return to fleet assignment immediately. Your replacement theories about human development are noted but not considered credible. Automated systems will provide adequate monitoring of the Sol system." Kethara felt her skin turn dark blue with frustration. She looked at her screens one more time, watching the data streams that showed human ships moving toward the edge of their solar system. Ships that were larger and more advanced than anything the humans had built before. Ships that carried energy signatures her instruments could not fully analyze. "Computer, download all observational data to secure storage. Mark files for delayed. Transmission to Galactic Command. Download complete. Dr. Kethara. Files marked for transmission in 1 standard year if no manual override is received." It was the best she could do. If she was wrong about the humans, the files would be automatically deleted and forgotten. If she was right, someone might eventually read them and understand what had been missed. She packed her equipment and boarded the transport ship that would carry her back to the war. As her station powered down behind her, the automated systems took over. Simple scanners that would record basic data, but could not analyze patterns or understand the deeper meaning of what they observed. The Sol system fell silent from outside. Observation for the first time in 50 years. On Earth, nobody noticed that the Watchers had gone away. Humans continued their daily lives, going to work, raising families, watching entertainment programs on their screens. But in secret facilities, hidden beneath mountains and ocean floors, other work continued around the clock. Sarah Chun stood in the command center buried 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains. Banks of computers lined the walls, their screens, showing data from across the solar system. She was the director of planetary defense, a job that officially did not exist, in an organization that had no budget in any government records. "Status report," she said to the technician at the nearest console. "All shipyards are operating at maximum capacity, Director. We now have 812 vessels of various classes completed and stationed in the outer system. Construction rate has increased 20% since the alien observation post went dark." Sarah nodded. Humanity had known about the Watchers for 30 years. It had taken careful planning to hide their true capabilities while appearing to develop at a normal pace. Every advancement had to be disguised. Every new technology had to be hidden. Every ship had to be built in the shadow of the gas giants, where alien sensors could not detect them. "What about the Deep Space Monitoring Array?" she asked. "Fully operational, Director. We have been tracking the galactic conflict for 6 months. Based on current patterns, we estimate the war will reach our local cluster within 18 months. Sarah walked the main display, which showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked battles that were raging across dozens of star systems. The scale of destruction was enormous. Entire civilizations were being wiped out in a matter of days. "Do we have any indication that Earth has been targeted?" she asked. "No, Director. Analysis suggests we are still classified as a primitive species. The warring factions appear to be focused on strategic systems with established civilizations." "Good. That gives us more time to prepare. What is the status of Project Sanctuary?" The technician pulled up new data. "Construction of the deep space facilities is ahead of schedule. We now have 47 stations positioned beyond the heliopause, each capable of supporting 10,000 people. If Earth is attacked, we can evacuate key personnel and continue. Resistance from hidden bases." Sarah studied the numbers. Humanity had learned from history. They had studied every invasion, every genocide, every attempt by one group to wipe out another. The lesson was always the same. Survival required preparation. It required having backup plans and hidden resources. It required being ready for the worst while hoping for the best. "And the weapon systems?" she asked quietly. "Testing continues at the Titan facility. The new particle beam arrays exceed all performance specifications. The gravity distortion devices are ready for deployment. The antimatter production facilities are operating at full capacity." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. Humanity had spent decades watching the galaxy through telescopes and radio signals. They had learned about alien technologies by studying the energy signatures of distant battles. They had reverse-engineered principles they could barely understand and turned them into weapons the galaxy had never seen before. "Director," another technician called out, "we are receiving a transmission from Deep Space Monitor Station Alpha 7. Put it on the main screen." The display changed to show the face of Captain Williams, commander of one of their most distant outposts. Behind him, Sarah could see the stars through the viewports of his ship. "Director Chun, we have detected massive fleet movements in the Vega sector. At least 3 different factions are moving toward each other. Estimated fleet sizes are in the thousands of ships each. Battle should commence within 48 hours. Thank you, Captain. Continue monitoring and report any changes." The transmission ended, and Sarah turned back to her staff. The galaxy was tearing itself apart in a war that would determine which species survived and which were destroyed. Earth was not supposed to be part of that war. Humanity was supposed to be too primitive to matter. But Sarah knew that assumptions could be dangerous things. She also knew that species which survived were usually the ones that prepared for threats they hoped would never come. Continue all preparations, she ordered. If this war comes to our system, humanity will be ready. In the darkness between the stars, human ships waited in silence. Hidden stations monitored galactic communications. Secret weapons powered up for tests that left no traces. And on Earth, 8 billion people continued their normal lives while a few thousand worked in the shadows to ensure that normal life could continue. The galaxy had forgotten about the small blue world and its primitive inhabitants. That was exactly what humanity had been counting on. Admiral Vorthik stood on the bridge of his command ship, watching the largest fleet in galactic history prepare for battle. 3 years of war had brought the hegemony to this moment. Every surviving ship from a dozen species floated in formation. Around him, their weapons powered and ready. Today they would strike at the heart of enemy territory and end this war once and for all. Fleet status report, he commanded. 12,000 ships ready for battle, Admiral, his tactical officer replied. We have 600 dreadnoughts, 2,000 cruisers, 4,000 destroyers, and 3,000 support vessels. Enemy forces are estimated at similar strength. Vorthik nodded with satisfaction. His massive form filled the command chair, his thick armor plates gleaming under the bridge lights. The enemy fleet waited for them beyond the gas giant, probably planning their own surprise attack. But Vorthik had superior numbers and the element of surprise. This battle would decide who ruled the galaxy. Sir, the communications officer called out. Long-range sensors are detecting movement at the edge of the system. Multiple contacts approaching at high speed. How many contacts? Vorthik asked. Unclear, sir. As sensor readings are ... strange. The ships do not match any known designs in our database. Vorthik felt a chill run through his body. Unknown ships appearing during the most important battle of the war could only mean one thing. Another species had decided to join the fight. Put them on the main screen, he ordered. The view screen flickered and showed space at the edge of the system. At first, Vorthik saw nothing unusual. Then points of light began to appear, growing larger as they approached. Ships emerged from jump space in perfect formation, their hulls reflecting starlight in ways that made them difficult to focus on. Admiral, the tactical officer's voice was tight with worry. Computer analysis suggests these ships are using technology we do not recognize. Their energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. More ships kept appearing. Hundreds of them, and thousands. They moved with precision that spoke of advanced computer control or crew training beyond anything Vorthik had ever seen. Their formation was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Open a channel, Vorthik commanded. Demand identification. The communications officer worked at his controls for several minutes before looking up with confusion. Sir, they are. Responding on all frequencies simultaneously. Perfect galactic standard translation. Put it through. The voice that filled the bridge was calm and clear, speaking with an accent none of them had heard before. This is Admiral Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. You have 30 minutes to cease hostilities and withdraw to your home systems. This is your only warning. Silence filled the bridge. Vorthik felt his heart skip several beats as he processed what he had just heard. Earth, the primitive world that was supposed to be inhabited by creatures who could barely reach their own. Moon. Admiral Chun, Vorthik said, fighting to keep his voice steady. This is Admiral Vorthok of the Hegemony Fleet. You are interfering in a galactic conflict that does not concern your species. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The response came back immediately. Admiral Vorthok, you have 29 minutes and 45 seconds. Sir, the tactical officer whispered, Long-range scans are showing the true size of their fleet. We count over 1,000 ships. Some of them are larger than our biggest dreadnoughts. Vorthik stared at the screen in disbelief. The ships hanging in space before him looked nothing like the primitive rockets and space stations his people had observed around Earth. These vessels were sleek and deadly, their hulls seeming to bend light around them. Weapons ports dotted, their surfaces like the eyes of predators. Impossible, he breathed. They are supposed to be primitive. They still use chemical rockets. Admiral, the sensor operator called out, I am detecting massive energy signatures from the human fleet. Their weapons are powering up. On the view screen, the human ships began to move. They did not advance in the chaotic rush that most species used in battle. Instead, they flowed through space like schools of fish, each ship perfectly positioned to support the others. Their formation was a work of art that spoke of centuries of tactical development. Sir, the communications officer reported, we are receiving a transmission from the enemy fleet. We came here to fight. They are requesting immediate ceasefire and asking who these new ships belong to. Vorthik realized that both fleets were now facing the same problem. A third force had appeared that neither side understood. The enemy fleet he had been preparing to destroy was just as confused and frightened as his own forces. All ships, battle stations, he commanded. Prepare to engage the human fleet. Admiral, his tactical officer said quietly, perhaps we should consider their warning. We know nothing about their capabilities. They are primitives. Vorthik roared. No matter what ships they have stolen or built, they cannot match the combined might of civilizations that have been fighting in space for thousands of years. But even as he said the words, he felt doubt creeping into his mind. The human ships moved with a confidence that spoke of extensive combat experience. Their formations were perfect. Their energy signatures were stronger than anything his scanners had ever detected. Sir, we are receiving another transmission from the human fleet. Put it through. Admiral Chun's voice filled the bridge again, but this time it carried an edge of steel. Admiral Vorthik, you now have 15 minutes. During the past 3 years, we have watched your species destroy 37 worlds and kill over 12 billion sentient beings. We will not allow this destruction to continue. How do you know our casualty figures? Vorthik demanded. We have been monitoring your war since it began. We know the location of every fleet, the status of every battle, and the name of every world you have destroyed. We know because we have been watching and learning while you have been dying. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Vorthik felt something he had not experienced in decades of warfare. Fear. Sir, the tactical officer whispered, additional human ships are appearing throughout the system. They seem to be surrounding both fleets. Vorthik looked at the tactical display and felt his blood turn cold. Red dots representing human ships were appearing everywhere. They had not just brought one fleet. They had brought multiple fleets and positioned them at strategic points throughout the system. Both galactic forces were now trapped. Impossible, he whispered. How did they move so many ships without being detected? Admiral, the sensor operator called out, I am detecting some kind of artificial structures in the outer system. Large installations that were not there when we arrived. Show me. The view screen changed to display the edge of the system, where massive geometric shapes hung in the darkness. They looked like space stations, but they were larger than most. Cities. Energy readings from the structures made the ship's computers struggle to process the data. Those installations, the tactical officer said slowly, they appear to have been built recently. The metal is still cooling from construction. Vorthik realized what he was seeing. The humans had not just brought a fleet to this battle. They had built military bases and positioned them around the system before either galactic fleet had arrived. This was not a sudden intervention. This was a carefully planned operation. "Admiral Chun," he said into the communicator, "how long have you been preparing for this?" The answer came back immediately. "We have been preparing since the day we discovered we were not alone in the universe. We learned that the galaxy was full of species that solved their problems through violence. So we prepared for the day when that violence would reach our home. You have been hiding your true capabilities for decades. We have been learning. While you fought each other, we studied your technologies. While you destroyed worlds, we built fleets. While you celebrated victories, we prepared for war." Vorthik looked at his tactical display one more time. Thousands of human ships surrounded his forces. Massive weapon platforms hung in space like waiting predators. For the first time in his military career, he was completely outmatched. "Admiral Chun," he said finally, "what are your terms?" The answer came back without hesitation. "All warships will power down weapons and return to their home systems immediately. Any ship that fires a weapon will be destroyed. The war ends now." Around him, Vorthik could see his officers looking at him with expressions of shock and fear. The most powerful fleet in galactic history had just been given orders by a species they had dismissed as primitive. The silence stretched for long minutes before Vorthik finally spoke. "All ships, power down weapons and prepare to withdraw." The galaxy had just learned that underestimating the quiet ones was always a mistake. The great crystal halls of Nexus Prime had been rebuilt after the first attack of the war, but they would never look the same. Cracks ran through the walls like scars, and the light of the three suns seemed dimmer than before. The surviving members of the Galactic Council sat in their floating chairs, but their numbers were much smaller now. War had claimed many species entirely. Ambassador Vex-High was not among the survivors. His people, the Dominion, had been one of the first to fall when the human fleets arrived in their home system. The reports said he had died when his command ship was cut in half by weapons that bent space itself. In his place sat Ambassador Felinara of the Crystalline Architects, one of the few species that still had enough ships left to matter. Her diamond body caught the fractured light as she spoke to the figure on the main display screen. "Admiral Chun," she said, her voice like wind chimes, "the Council formally requests to know your intentions regarding the remaining galactic civilizations." The human woman on the screen looked tired. 3 months had passed since the human fleets had appeared throughout the galaxy, ending the Hegemony War in a matter of days. Since then, Admiral Chun had become the most important person in known space, though she seemed to take no pleasure in the role. "Our intentions remain the same as they were when we first made contact," Admiral Chun replied. "We want the killing to stop. We want the rebuilding to begin. We want species to solve their problems with words instead of planet-killer weapons." "But what gives you the right to make that decision for the galaxy?" asked General Korath of the Hegemony Remnant. His armor was scarred from battles, and one of his 4 arms was missing. "You appeared from nowhere and destroyed fleets that took centuries to build." Admiral Chun's expression did not change, but something cold flickered in her eyes. "General Korath, your fleets destroyed 43 worlds in the past 3 years. That includes the complete extinction of 6 species. We have recordings of your ships burning civilian populations while they tried to surrender." She leaned forward slightly. "You ask what gives us the right?" "The same thing that gave you the right to commit genocide. The ability to do it. The difference is that we choose to use our power to save lives instead of ending them." The council chamber fell silent. Through the cracked crystal walls, they could see human ships hanging in orbit around Nexus Prime. The vessels were beautiful in a way that made them seem almost alive, their hulls shifting and flowing like liquid metal. But everyone in the chamber knew that each ship carried enough firepower to crack a planet. "Admiral," said Dr. Yanthara of the Science Coalition, "many of our people still do not understand how your species developed such advanced technology, while appearing primitive. Our observation posts reported that you were centuries away from interstellar travel." Admiral Chun smiled for the first time in the conversation, but it was not a happy expression. "Dr. Yanthara, your observation posts saw exactly what we wanted them to see. Every rocket launch, every space station, every Mars colony was designed to make you think we were developing at a normal pace." She gestured to someone off-screen, and the display changed to show images that made the council members gasp. Massive shipyards hidden in the shadow of Jupiter. Industrial complexes buried beneath the ice of Europa. Mining operations in the asteroid belt that stretched for millions of kilometers. While your people watched our public space program, Admiral Chan continued, our real work was happening where you could not see it. We built our first interstellar ships 30 years ago. We established colonies in nearby systems 20 years ago. We have been studying your technologies and improving upon them for decades. Impossible, breathed General Koroth. Our sensors would have detected such massive construction projects. Your sensors detected what we allowed them to detect. We learned early that the galaxy judged species by their apparent capabilities. So we made sure our apparent capabilities matched your expectations. Ambassador Felinara's crystalline body rang like a bell as she shifted in her chair. You deliberately deceived us for decades. We protected ourselves, Admiral Chun corrected. We watched the galaxy for 50 years before you even noticed we existed. We saw how older species treated younger ones. We saw what happened to worlds that appeared weak or valuable. We decided that looking primitive was safer than looking advanced. The display changed again to show the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas where fighting had stopped, but damage remained severe. Yellow zones showed regions where human reconstruction fleets were working to repair damaged worlds. Green zones indicated areas where normal life was returning. We have spent the past 3 months stopping fights and rebuilding what your war destroyed, Admiral Chun said. Our medical ships are treating wounded on 40 different worlds. Our construction fleets are rebuilding cities and space stations. Our food ships are feeding populations whose supply lines were destroyed. Why? Asked Dr. Yanthara. Why help species that would have ignored your existence if you had remained primitive? Admiral Chun was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, because someone has to. We watched your war kill billions of innocent people. We watched entire civilizations disappear from the galaxy. We could have stayed hidden and let you all destroy each other, but that would have made us no better than the species who started this war. But you could rule the galaxy now, General Koroth said. Your fleets are more powerful than anything we have ever seen. Your technology is beyond our understanding. Why do you not simply take control? Because ruling through fear creates more. Wars, Admiral Chun replied. We studied galactic history while we prepared for this day. Every time one species conquered the others, it led to rebellion and more destruction. We do not want to rule anyone. We want to live in a galaxy where species work together instead of trying to destroy each other. The council members looked at each other with expressions of confusion and disbelief. The idea of a species with ultimate power choosing not to use it was alien to most of them. What happens now? Asked Ambassador Felinara. Now we rebuild, Admiral Chun said. We establish new rules for how species interact with each other. We create systems for solving disputes without warfare. We make sure that what happened in us past 3 years never happens again. And if species refuse to follow these new rules? General Koroth asked. Admiral Chun's expression became cold again. Then they will discover why we built so many ships. The display changed one more time to show a view of Earth from space. The blue planet looked peaceful and beautiful, just as it had in the old observation reports. But now everyone who looked at it knew the truth. This small world had produced the most powerful military force in galactic history, and they had done it in complete secrecy. The Earth you see on your screen is home to 8 billion humans, Admiral Chun said. Every one of them grew up hearing stories about wars and disasters and species that went extinct because they could not defend themselves. We decided long ago that humanity would not suffer that fate. She paused, letting her words sink in. We prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. We built weapons while planning for peace. We became strong so we could choose to be gentle. The galaxy laughed at our silence, but our silence was never empty. It was full of determination. The transmission ended, leaving the Galactic Council sitting in their damaged chamber, staring at the empty screen. Outside their windows, human ships continued their patient orbits, silent guardians watching over a galaxy that was learning to live without war. Ambassador Felinara spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper. They were primitive when we first found them. Chemical rockets and radio signals. How did they advance so quickly? Dr. Yenthara had been studying the human technology reports for weeks. They did not advance quickly. They advanced quietly. There is a difference. General Koroth stared out at the human ships with something that might have been respect. They learned from watching us destroy each other. They saw our mistakes and chose not to repeat them. The galaxy had learned the lesson that day. The most dangerous species was not always the loudest or the most aggressive. Sometimes it was the one that watched and waited and prepared in silence. Sometimes it was the one that everyone thought they could ignore. Humanity had been underestimated because they looked weak, but they had never been weak. They had been patient, and patience, combined with determination and careful planning, had proven to be the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. The age of galactic war was over. The age of human peace had begun.